I think for the most part, I think we're good now. You ready, little man?
Daddy, I didn't pick Storm.
You didn't pick Storm?
No, I just picked it.
Okay. All right. We just both say So you're going Storm?
No, I didn't pick her. I didn't pick her.
Well, remember some of these characters are on a time limit too. Go with
Get ready to kick butt.
You want to restart it?
I picked the wrong one too.
Yes. Do what you want to restart.
Get ready, fight!
You won't hit a girl, would you know?
I don't know, would we?
Wow! Wow! No, bro, I didn't want to fight, bro.
You didn't want to fight?
No!
What?
Pause! Pause, leave the round.
Thanos reigns! Thanos
Can't
reigns! Thanos reigns!
leave? We have to
Alright.
finish the round.
Alright, let's do it. Oh, what the?
You're a boss!
Wow.
Get out of here!
Okay, okay. You and your little tornadoes. Here, take some of these. Take some of these. Oh my
tornadoes!
Oh my gosh. Oh man. Whoa, what the? These spam attacks!
Wow! Okay.
Alright, that's it. That's it. Mr. Thanos gonna give it to you. You miss now. Wow, you're fast.
Wow! My health!
And man, your health was gone a long time ago, and she's still fighting me.
Destiny.
Your health was barely touched. You know how many times I hit you?
That is crazy.
Yeah, you're cheating. You know how many times I hit you?
All right, let's do this.
Wow!
Okay, that's it. That's it.
Stop, bro!
Oh, I stopped. Okay. At least I'm doing variety here. All right. Oh. All right, that's it.
God,
Okay, okay, okay. That's it. It's showtime. I didn't think I was gonna have to do this, but. Ooh. Alright, pick a different character. I picked the wrong one. My bad.
Destiny
the wrong one too.
I was trying to pick an X-Man to make it more X-Men-ish, but
I'm the strong guy.
look at us in a battle right now. Thank you for a ride.
Yeah, you cheating boss fighter.
Right.
It's fine. You want to pick a boss? Okay. You want to pick a boss?
Who's this guy? Ant-Man? Oh yeah, he's another Spider-Man villain.
Him. Guys.
I think he's G.I. Joe.
One. Goblin. Carnage. How about you both pick a villain?
A villain?
Yeah. I'm gonna pick
Venom?
yeah. Pick a villain. No.
Alright. Alright, so you got Venom.
Has to be. No, the big guys either.
Look, I hear you over there. Hear yourself over there?
Joker.
Who?
Joker.
Think. I thought there was another Venom. Where is he?
Carnage.
The only one?
Carnage. And Venom. Carnage and Venom.
I'm not gonna ask why Leo is in here. I don't remember.
Pick Leo. He looks cool. Pick a Mega Man villain.
Alright guys, give me just a moment.
ready to kick butt.
Come and get us.
Get ready, fight!
Level up.
Venom back. Venom back.
Counter!
Venom back. Great. Spoil sport.
Get ready, fight!
You die!
Venom rush.
Counter!
Venom back.
Oh wow, my mic was muted the whole time. Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much for letting me know, bro. My guy is fast, but he's not. I thought Carnage was gonna be like more sweet. Like he's the villain, like more villainy. Venom is like anti-villain.
He's like all bulky.
Right.
Look at your guy. He's so skinny. He's like, I'll eat you for dinner. He'd be like, oh.
Right, there you go. There you go. All right, here we go. Come on. Come on. There we go. Oh, oh, blocked all that.
Hey!
Wow.
What the?
He's like, hey. Wow, okay.
The combo breaker. Don't do that big guy. I know what you're doing. All right, that's it. Watch this. Oh, okay.
I blocked all of that, Daddy, just now.
Nice. Wow, look at your damage. Oh, it looks so epic and it does absolutely nothing.
Ow! I blocked all this.
Not bad, but watch this, you're dead. Oh, I'm not going easy on you. Just because you're my son doesn't mean I'm going to go easy on you. You just smacked me across the screen. Alright, you know when you do that though, it leaves you open for vulnerability. So here, I got you. Watch this. Okay, that's it. That's it. That's it. Yeah, be careful, look at your health.
Look at your health.
Oh, that was a close battle. That was a close battle. That was really good. Right? You guys see that? That's insane.
Click him, Daddy.
Those slots, man.
Daddy, just
Don't worry, G. I'm gonna fix this soon, bro.
Daddy, pick
If I
a
don't
random
fix it
character.
within the month or maybe, I'm just gonna remove it.
Daddy, pick a random.
I really want it to work though. I think it's an awesome feature.
Daddy, just hit random character select.
Yeah, right?
Hit random character.
Random character select. Banshee. Evil. Hey, you're Venom? Here, I'll be a good guy.
I can't.
I know you're not a good guy. So we don't want to pick that. So we have Spider-Man, we got Spider-Man 2099, so that's kind of like Hulk 2099. Yeah. And we got the Armored Spider.
Armored Spider-Man.
Him?
Yeah.
Actually, he was one of the hidden characters.
Daddy, do Spider-Man versus Venom. Regular Spider-Man.
Regular Spider-Man?
Yeah, versus Venom.
Get ready to kick butt.
Better be careful. Wait, Daddy.
Let's do this, guys.
Daddy.
What?
Let's make it like one of those epic battles because you know Spider-Man.
Hold on, before we start this thing.
Really, Daddy?
You know what I just realized?
Really? Your Spidey
No,
senses?
look at us on the camera. Look below us. Look, like right here. Look, you see that? Look. I need to fix that gap. Give me a second
Daddy,
there.
look, really? Your Spidey senses? Look, my Spidey senses are tingling. Look, my Spidey senses are tingling, Daddy.
Right.
You have Spidey senses.
All right, you ready?
Get ready, fight!
Let's do this. You're going to get Spider-Man, Venom. I'm your nemesis. You better watch it. All right, come on.
Ow!
Whip sling. Spider-Man's good, dude. You don't want to go against Spider-Man. He was one of the best characters that look. See, he rolls around. He gets around in the arena better. Look at that. Yeah, he's not like Carnage.
Yeah, but look,
All right, that's it.
You're more vulnerable than
Yeah.
me. You're more vulnerable.
All right, that's it.
Spidey senses nothing. Get out of here, Spider-Man. Oh!
Yeah, he's agile, see? He gets around.
Now I see how Spider-Man beat Carnage in the movie.
Ooh, Spidey breaker. Oh.
Maximum spiders.
Hey, Spider-Man's a beast, bro.
Wait, Daddy, how do you do the combos? Hold on.
Some characters have them, some don't.
Hold on. I want to see how I do mine. Hold
They're all different.
on. Hold on. How do I do my combo?
Sometimes you can just... Every character's different, though. I don't know. We can't pause again.
No, I don't think.
It doesn't show you. Probably have to Google them all up. Come on.
Venom Rush.
Uh-oh.
Oh!
What the? You look a little worried about Spider-Man. I see you roll too.
Yeah, we both roll.
Yep.
But you're quick!
Yeah, Spider-Man's always been quicker. He's like Pac-Man. We're gonna have to outmaneuver him. Shoot, you're strong.
Oh! My controller batteries fell out.
They did. Put your battery back in.
I won anyway.
Oh gosh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow. All right, you got it? All right, let's get back in, guys.
No, I don't think I took you out. Bro.
Oh, no, you didn't. All right, that's it. No!
Yeah, let's see who won. Let's see who won in this one.
Get ready, fight!
Round 2. Movie 2. Let's see who wins in movie 2, right, Daddy?
Yep, let's go.
Let's see who wins in movie 2. Carnage mode.
Maximum spiders.
Nope.
Oh, you dodged it. Okay.
Nope.
All right, good what's thing.
My health? How am I vulnerable to this little man?
Maximum spiders.
Oh, see, I move quick. Can't handle it? Can't handle the Spideys?
Like that.
Oh, okay. Handle some of that. Oh my gosh! You're a little worried now. See how I jump around? Like, watch this. Here I come.
Nope. What? How do you climb the walls?
I'm Spider-Man.
Oh, I get that power? Oh wait, yeah, that's right. I got pinned by a radioactive spider, yeah.
Yeah, all right, come on.
How'd I miss that? Daddy, hold on.
Oh, I missed.
Hold on, Daddy, stop. Hold on.
Jump and then hold and push, hold back.
Huh?
Like this. Jump and hold and then push, or jump and jump again. Or wait. That's not doing it now. Oh, you gotta jump back towards it and then jump away from it.
Hey, huh?
See? Like, watch. Jump on the wall and then hold this way. I went like this. See, look at my finger. Jump, and then other way. There you go. See? What the heck? My character moved with the screen?
Hey! Come on! Do your job! Come on! Hey!
Hold on,
You just did it.
He just jumped off the wall?
Yeah.
I think he can only jump off the wall.
Come on!
Oh, you can't. Or if you hold it, like do it and hold it. Oh,
You know,
yeah.
like-
Some characters are different.
He can only jump.
Alright, let's go.
Hold on. Now I know how to jump, Daddy. Thank you for help.
Come on, Venom.
Oh.
What are you doing? Oh, let me know when he's ready, guys. Hold on. Let me grab a cup of tea here.
I can't punch you. I can't.
Oh, Venom. What am I gonna do with you, poor Venom? Trying to destroy the town of the citizens, and Spider-Man is here to save the day. Oh, Venom, I think playtime is over.
Oh.
It's showtime. Let's go, buddy.
Nope. Ooh.
Let's go.
Oh! It's still playtime. Bruh, stop!
Come on, Venom. Look at Venom. He got these little like
Get ready.
little comment.
Round 3. Oh, this is
Oh, but Venom, what you think, buddy? Your tiebreaker days are over. Here, take a web sling.
Nope.
How about this?
Oh!
Yeah, I can turn into a Venom for a second. I was saving my power attacks just for you.
You know all the combos of him.
Oh, I used to be a pro with this game. Spider-Man, you wanted me to play him?
Daddy, I don't know how to play this.
I know, each character is different. You gotta practice with it.
I don't know my combos.
It's okay, don't worry, you'll get it. Come on.
Hold on a second. Are we seriously in Burn Smelly's world?
It looks like it, right? Yeah, it definitely looks like it. All right, let's go. Good. Come here. Oh! And you think I'm good with Spider-Man? I play with people online, bro. They cheat, bro.
Web swing.
Oh, you son of a biscuit. You son of a biscuit. Oh! Come on.
I'm becoming better with him.
Come on. What the? You still alive?
I'm really immortal.
Oh, you're so good. I need to think of a plan of a tactic against Venom here. It's showtime.
Nope.
He looks in the air. He's like,
Come on.
oh, I'll take a picture. Selfie. Post it online.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Do I have more to come at X? No, I do not. I am planning on getting it.
Pick your character.
Oh, you just went with the boss person?
Yep.
Wow.
You got me mad. It's time to bring out Abyss.
Okay, well then I'm gonna go with the almighty Batman. Because I'm wearing Batman.
You actually think Batman?
Oh, Batman will
You think Batman?
defend the tone
You
of
think
evil.
Batman's gonna destroy that thing?
Yeah, I do want Mortal Kombat X though. I don't know, is it any good? Like, I kind of like, I don't really see anybody play. Oh, you mean Mortal Kombat X?
I've got the coordinates.
Whatever the newest one is, I don't have the newest one. I'm so scared. I'm really scared. I'm freaking out. I'm seriously freaking out. I'm sweating. Holy moly! I am Batman. Your attacks are unblockable. But this won't stop me and my gadgets. Batwing, Batarang, oh gosh, and your electric balls. You got a lot of balls for a character. All right, let's go. Oh! Big sonic boom? Is that what that was? Oh gosh. Okay, I can't do anything to you. You're a boss. Yeah, this is gonna hurt as I block, and it still does severe damage. Okay. And this is gonna hurt too. Wow! 20% of my HP just depleted like no tomorrow. Okay, yeah, well about that. So, yeah, we're just gonna hang tight. Do a few, try to be a hero here. And I am taking out. Mortal Kombat 11 is the newest one. Yeah, that's the one I don't have.
Daddy, look at me. I'm the protector. Daddy, you don't mess with me. I'm the protector of this space.
Yo, I remember these jams, yo. Like,
Daddy.
what?
Don't mess with me. I'm the protector of this place.
So boss is like, wow. Man, why do you have unlimited though? Like,
You went straight into that.
wow, you can just launch projectiles in a matter of seconds. Look at that.
Oh.
Wow, okay. Yep, I'm done. It just takes the whole screen. I can't jump it, duck it, nothing. It's like right where...
Oh.
No!
You were in where it launched.
Of this satellite,
I win.
losing the
I feel like the music might be loud in this game.
Daddy, I'm the protector of the crystal.
I see.
Really? You suck Batman again?
I'm gonna go with Flash.
Oh.
I don't need boss characters.
You
I just
think
need
Flash is gonna go against Leo?
Does he know Leonardo?
Airport, Battlefield. Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Do me a favor before we start. Can you go grab me?
Daddy, there's a Marvel vs. Capcom 3
Grab me a blue
match.
can in there.
There's a Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Leo, why does he look like? Oh, what the? Oh, you cheater! Look at you! I'm over here thinking the computer AI was playing. I'm like, wait, what? Totally getting copyright. I know. Yeah, we will. I don't care. It's all good. No, the other blue one, the dark blue one. You know what that works?
You take what you get.
Yeah, thank you. Problem is, I need that.
Huh? Yep.
That's pretty disgusting. All right, hold on, guys. Give me just a moment, okay? We're gonna hit that BRB, guys. Give me one moment. All right, guys, so we need to get back into the action. So far, what we've been having here is this game being so tiny. I don't know why it's so tiny, but anyway, we're just going to continue back into the screen here. So we need to continue on this game and see what's going on. Yep, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Click inside the game. Yep.
You know, yeah.
Yes, I am. Click inside the game.
Good news, though. I got a certain game last night. Ooh, what did you get?
I clicked the game.
What did you get? Well, give me a second. Let me get situated here, buddy. Hold on, hold on. Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
I clicked the game. Ready? Click it.
No way. Did you get Star Citizen? Dude, you know we're playing, bro. I want to play, but I don't want to play by myself. Like, I kind of play by myself, but I just never have time to play. Hold on. You're impatient. Let's go. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh!
All right. You want to go against the Flash? Is that what it is?
Yep.
No more cheating. You cheat again? All right.
Get
I'll
ready.
do arcade mode if that's the case, okay? All right, let's go.
Oh! Look at my fist! Look!
You got a thing coming. Oh. You can't battle the Flash. Oh, I'm too fast for you. Come here. See those arms? Oh, you didn't see them legs coming, did you? Oh.
I saw. Oh.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Flashing blade! Flashing blade!
How did you get that?
I'm so fast. Oh, I want to stop until you got it. Until you got it. Nice, dude. That's good, bro.
Stop! How are you so fast at moving? That's cheating.
I'm the Flash, dude.
That's like a hack or something.
Dude,
You
no.
can't move
Look.
that fast.
I'm so fast I can make a paper duck. Look at that. Before you can go punch it.
Flashing blade!
I can't even punch you.
Oh, you are Leo. Leo's more of us. He's power, but he's like, dang.
Flashing blade! Flashing blade!
I can't punch.
Miss me. Woo! He is fast, right?
Taunting. You're just taunting like
It was
this.
funny last night while we were playing Sea of Thieves. That's good.
Daddy.
Yeah, I've been playing Sea of Thieves a little bit, but kind of like solo running, really. Like offline, not really streaming. The game runs so much better when I'm not live playing it.
Daddy, Daddy, who's this guy?
And I'm playing. I was playing a little bit of it. With
Who's
my
this guy,
cousin.
Daddy?
It's Bison. Fine, you wanna play him? You can.
No, where's the regular guy?
Oh, what?
Is this a regular guy?
M Bison.
He's a regular one?
Where's the other one? I guess so. Yeah, he's regular. That's fine. But he's right next to who?
I wanna play this guy.
Nice, bro. That's the way to do it, bro. That is the way to do it.
Decision.
Look at him. Oh, Superman on you. I'll go Wonder Woman.
Get ready to kick
Yes,
butt.
pick the ladies. Come on, Wonder Woman. Don't let me down. Watch her be not so good. I'm gonna get my lasso, my rope of truth.
Prepare to pay for your crimes.
I got wings in my feet. This is so much. These are so flat. See my rope of truth?
Look, Daddy, look, look, Daddy. No, I'm not gonna hit you. Look.
You look like something I would just jump on your head.
This is when I turn around, no?
Victory will be mine. Victory will be mine. Victory will be mine.
And watch you have like some super ultimate attack combos and stuff. Whoa, what the? Okay, you're. What the? Whoa, what the? Jeez! Wow! Okay, just knocked him across the map like nothing! Alright, that's it. That's it.
Amazon.
Got it. Now you got a thing coming. I'm Wonder Woman. You better watch it. Moves are weird. Come on. The camera's moving way too much. It looks like those mushrooms from Mario Brothers. Yeah, that's what I said. It looks like we should jump on his
Alright,
head.
Daddy, this is how I do this.
Hey, all right. Project. Thank you so much for that, bro. For that resub. What's going on, dude? Welcome back to the Trixz Gaming Squad. It's nice to have you here once again, part of the team. It's always awesome to have you guys, especially all you ongoing subscribers. You guys are just truly timeout. Amazing. I just had a subscriber. You hear me? More important than the game right now.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started back in the game. Project Zero, thank you so much, guys. Shout out to Project Zero with that resub. Thank you so much. I think that was a tier 1 resub. Yep, thank you so much for that. 23 months in a row, dude. Wow.
Hold on,
Loyalty
Daddy.
right there. Dedication. I appreciate it. All right. Oh, wait. I got to click back in. We ready?
Hold on, Daddy. Let me see how I do on this. Oh, shit.
Yeah, you're just wasting my health the whole time. All I'm seeing you is shooting. You have different shoots. That's what that is.
How did I jump on this? How did I jump?
We need more people like you, Project Zero. We need more ongoing resubs, guys. I know, Jay, you've been subbed for a while, too. Aren't you going on? You've gone more than 12 months. I know you've been for a while. You ready? Oh, let's go. No, it ain't no holding on. We're gonna fight. Come on.
Strength is nothing.
Oh, somebody typed that in chat. Look, I'm like, where'd that fish just come from? Wow. Okay. That did absolutely nothing. I'm gonna hit you with my rope of truth. Ready?
Amazon.
Alright, that's it. I'm just gonna do this.
Push back. Amazon. Push back.
Oh, remember? I think it's this one. We gotta get it.
Amazon. Push back. Amazon. Push back.
Oh, you dodged that. Just barely. Wow, he's just like walking casually around the arena. Oh my gosh! Unbelievable. We're not gonna have this. We're not gonna have this! The music is pretty loud. Yeah, yeah. I try to turn it down. The only way I'm gonna be able to turn it down is if I do this. Where am I at?
Daddy, why is
Wait.
my health so low?
I can do it this way.
Why is my health so low?
My character is strong. Yeah, you got a bunch of long-range projectile attacks. That's why.
My name's Me Tool.
There we go. So that should have bumped it down a little more for you guys.
I'm not playing him again. He sucks.
Yeah. Mario?
Yeah, Mario. I eat the pasta.
We go with wait, how come Luigi's not in here?
Because Luigi sucks and he wasn't good enough to be in this game.
No?
Nope. Wait, who the heck is that?
Ooh.
That Mega Man dude.
Which one? This one? It's Mega Man Chaotic, yeah. You kicked my butt with Storm. Oh gosh. Yeah, but I don't think we have Luigi.
Yeah, because he wasn't good enough to be in this game.
If you guys see Luigi, let me know. We'll pick Luigi. I don't see him.
Luigi versus Mario.
Carefully, little man. Luigi's got a mansion. It's got a resort of multi-millions in gems, right?
Wait, why am I Wario?
Hey, that Mario dance though. Okay, Mario. You think you have what it takes?
Hold on, let me see my moves. Hold on.
I know, right? How dare they?
Wow, look at this punch. Look, look, he's so fat he won't be able to raise up his leg. Look.
Right, right. Just barely kicking it up.
And this move, look. Ew. Ow! Ow!
Wow, you ain't ready for.
Wait, Daddy, how do I get his special power, the flame thing? Hold on, Daddy, look at this. I'm not gonna attack you. Look, let me show you.
Do that again. I don't know what that does. I think it's just like it's like a block. Oh no, it actually I think it gave you more abilities. Now you got 3. Look. I don't know. You ready?
Look, my icon glows.
Yep.
You got 0, I got 3.
All right, the music shouldn't be too loud now. At least I see the game volume goes down when we speak, so that should be good. At least you guys can hear us. All right, let's go, little man. 3, 2, 1, go.
No!
Oh God. Man, tomatoes are too deadly. I don't want to keep using those.
Where are you at? That's cheating. I can't even see you.
Man, she is strong. No wonder you kicked my butt with her. Gee, she don't even have to like get in a fight.
No, that's the thing. Mario's weak. Look, punch me once. Punch me once.
Yeah. Hey, come on.
Mario's weak. He don't even have any super moves.
Come on, Mario. Come on.
She can fly. That's cheating.
What do you think she is? She's Storm.
Okay, you're only able to stay on the ground.
Okay, let's go. Oh, but it's not infinite. All right, let's go. Oh, you almost hit me.
I said stay on the...
See? Come on. Come on, Mario. Oh!
Can you stop?
Give me up. You got, you're close. Whoop. Look at it. Kick me. Hey, I guess you could say we're actually kicking it. All right, let's go. Oh, gosh. Oh, God. Oh, gosh. Oh!
You're getting better than Mario, ain't I? Cheater!
Oh, I used to be a beast with
You're
Storm.
flying! I can't catch you.
What do you think she is? She has wings. Or a cape. It's not fair, but it's fair when he uses a boss. I know, right? See? Well, even they're saying it. Right? Right, guys? Man, he needs to know. Somebody's got to be truthful with him. All right, here we go.
How about I just choose this guy?
Huh? Who, what? He's actually pretty... Oh, this is the original Bison, I think. This one.
Oh, then I can
No,
choose
actually,
him?
they're both in Bison. I think mine's... This one's from the movie. That's why. That's from the actual game.
Oh.
Okay, which one do you want? I'll be one, you be one. You want him?
I don't know who he is.
All right, let's do it. Homer versus Krusty. That's the next battle. Homer versus Krusty. Remember the clown versus Homer. All right, we'll do the next one, guys. We got you.
And then next round, we can do Peter versus the chicken.
We can do Peter versus the chicken. And they only got one of the Futurama, so where's the other one? I don't know the other one. I'm going to see if I can add more characters.
Who's this guy?
He's from... Marvel's Capcom, actually. He's actually really good.
I never played him, so give me a break here. Hold on, let me tell you. Reach that far?
Are you ready?
And that. Jeez, he's made the cactus? Or what?
Miss me. Oh, what the? Why me? Woo! Why me?
I hate that.
Come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh, miss me. Oh, how'd you keep fighting me? Oh, wow, wow. Oh, I hit you? Wow.
He's so weak.
Get ready, fight!
Amigo's weak.
For the most part, Storm was considered on par or equal to Jean Grey till she became the Phoenix. Ah, okay, right. Storm was one of the stronger ones I remember in the games, and especially in a lot of the X-Men
Look
series.
how weak he is.
They got regular health, that's why. You're not a boss. Look at my health, look. See that? That was a grapple. But we're both weak.
What do you mean? I'm weaker.
No, it's just I'm hitting you more.
I can't hit you.
No, look at that. 2 grapples, you already took almost like 50% of my health. But see, I'm doing combos, that's why.
I can't do combos with him. I never played him. I can't play him. I don't know what he does.
You gotta find a character you like and take him for a ride.
What?
And he would pick Homer. You beat me to it. All right, let's do it. Krusty Burst.
I beat you to Homer.
Yeah, M. Bison is pretty powerful. He is, but he's not like the ultimate Bison because there is Super Bison, but he's not in here.
Rowdy!
And why are you a Super Homer?
Oh man.
That pink though. Homer came with the best pant. He just totally digged his butt.
Hey, kid!
Burger.
Hey, kid!
Well, that burger gives you powers.
Hey, kid! Hey, kid!
All right, let's go. Let's go.
That's got you in my butt.
I raced so much when I was fighting him. Oh yeah, in Street Fighter, yeah. Ugh, I just saw some. What the? I'm not gonna ask. All right, let's go. Let's do this.
Do something!
So no. Right. The only one that came close to the X-Men universe that could possibly kill Phoenix or Wolverine is Silver Surfer. Oh, okay. Wow, that belly though. Okay.
Wow, clown shoot.
Let me show you something. Let me show you something. You ready? You ready for it? You ready for it?
Nope.
Wow! Wow! Get down with the cloud! Hey! Do something!
All right, that's it. That's
I
it.
can't fight you, bro.
Oh, my character doesn't do much either. Ooh.
Wow! Hey, kid!
Bro, cheater.
Do something!
Wow, man, you just slapping me around.
But look at my health. Homer's losing.
Ow!
Ow.
Do something! Hey, kid! Hey, kid!
Psylocke killed Wolverine, but a few times in the comics was stuff. Right? Okay, Psylocke. Yeah, she was in a lot of the fighting game series.
Do something! Do something!
Like I'm using him as a body. Wow. This guy is so evil. Alright, come on. He's gotta have more abilities than this. Watch this. Here we go. Watch this. I'm gonna do something new.
Hey!
I ain't got no ultimate abilities? I should. Hold on, let me try this. Oh, I got a pie!
Do something!
Get a monkey!
What?
Do something!
Cheater!
Do something! Do something! Do something!
Oh wow, you're just dodging all my attacks. Look at that. Gotta take the monkeys. Whoa!
Look at your health, Daddy. Look at mine. It's gonna be a close battle, Daddy.
Ooh, that was close.
Cheater. That's fine, Daddy. Let's do Peter Griffin versus the chicken. Daddy,
Really? Oh, okay. Which one?
how do you change their colors?
Just different colors is different button or different buttons are different colors. It doesn't show you, but just try different ones.
Oh yeah, regular color now.
I think this is just a picture. So once we get inside, we'll find out.
That's right. I'm blue.
here to kick your ass.
Oh, he just said the A word. Okay.
Look, Dad. Look at me on the chicken.
Oh, you people can kiss the fattest.
Look at me, look at me, look, try to hit me. Watch me. He's like, my belly, here's my protection. All right, now you ask for Peter Griffin. That's it, that's it. I'm the real chicken, that's why I'm rocking the yellow hair. Eat my butt.
Nope.
All right, that's it, that's it. Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been working out, bro.
Daddy, could you stop real quick? Hold on, let me figure out how to... Wow, okay.
Get the chicken a finger, I know, right? Oh!
Put the middle finger up at me again.
There you go, watch. You want to see my farts?
Nope.
Let me show you my fart power and my ultimate.
Wow, cheater. Peter Griffin's cheating.
All right, here we go, guys. Here we go. Oh, gosh. The chicken doesn't look that good, huh?
No. But look at your health right now.
Holy shoot, here, take some of this.
What? Ew.
Cook a chicken tonight. Who needs a stove? You got Peter Griffin.
Cheater.
All right. Uh-oh, Peter's happy. What the?
He's like, can't touch me. Whoa.
What the heck? Right.
Throw a beer at me?
I threw a beer at you. Here, take this.
Wow, that helped though. What's that?
Oh, somebody's typing that in chat.
Hold on, I can't do anything. Hold up.
What the? Did I?
Hold on. What is the special doing?
I'm not gonna ask.
Oh, Daddy, he has a special.
Okay, well, learn this. If you stop just tapping the same thing. Are you ready?
I just threw a book at you.
All right, let's go. I'm gonna let you touch the ground. I totally just missed all that. Right, I'm gonna fart now. I just totally missed again. No! Oh, right in the shin. Alright, that's it. Witness the fart.
Nope.
go.
Let's see what happens when I win.
Lizard Peter, right?
Daddy,
He
what
has
the
a strong
heck?
dunking game.
Daddy,
Oh,
I get the girl.
okay. Okay. All right,
I'll
come
win
on.
this.
Come on. Let's go. Let's go.
You totally just missed. Oh,
Oh, I did? Oh, All right, guys, here we go. We got to hold it down.
Wow. Okay, keep you stop.
I told you I wasn't going to let you hit the ground. I don't know.
That's disgusting. How do you fart fire?
There we go. There we go. Oh, so miss. No. Gotcha.
Nope. Oh! Oh, stinks. Ow! Ew!
Come here, chicken.
Wow! Stop spamming! Daddy, round 3's a tiebreaker.
Oh, right in the gut.
Daddy, guess what?
Who's the big man now, eh?
Bah! Wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Daddy?
Grabbing fried chicken tonight, boys.
What the heck is War Machine?
War Machine? War Machine was originally created by, War Machine and Iron Man are both good guys, but at one point they were rivals. Or several points, actually.
I want to pick someone really good.
They're all good in their own way.
Every person I picked so far.
I don't know why the music. You're doing a hawk? Ooh. Gonna be tough. I think I'm gonna do.
Huh?
We did hawk.
Can't do any bosses.
The bosses.
Can't.
Okay. Let's see here. He-Man? Is He-Man here? Where's He-Man?
Huh?
He-Man.
Sure.
Charlie.
Know where he's at. Mexican Typhoon, I'm done. That's his name. There he is, probably right there next to Juggernaut. No, not that one.
He-Man.
Magneto?
Red shirt, blonde hair. No, that's a Mega Red, if that's what you're talking about. No, that's Ryu. I mean Ken.
Hey, can you pick someone?
Hold on. No, down? We're seeing 09.
That one.
There's Rolento. These are mostly like the Street Fighters.
Ree from left side.
Are you talking about Ken? You can start by him. Okay. We'll do Ken.
Kick butt.
Let's go.
Oh God. Daddy, I'm stronger than you.
Oh, you get the special entrance effect. All right, Hawk. You're too cocky. Oh, this is gonna hurt. Oh, your damage is unreal. Alright, that's it. Jeez!
Wow, okay. Firepower.
Dang! Hawk is strong. Ken and Ryu were my favorites, right? Just got my butt kicked.
Get ready, fight!
That's it. It's time to go Super Street Fighter on your behindy. Oh, that's it. It's showtime. I'm gonna go like real Ken on you. Ready?
No.
Oh, yes, you are. Look, that's Ken. That's Ken. Come on. Come on. Oh, what's wrong now, Hawk? That's so strong, huh?
You think so? I'm just pushing every button I can to get that shit in the back.
It's okay. It's okay. Okay.
Okay, bro.
Take this. Oh, I so just missed that. I'm gonna get this one. That's right. That's right. That's right. Come on. Oh, I don't think I know.
Since you're strong, look at my health compared to yours.
Level up.
Come on. You are a strong opponent, so I have to go eat. I have to be careful with you. Your attacks hurt. Look at the damage I'm doing to you. Barely anything. But you're strong. I'm not strong. Shoot. I should have hit that. There, this will get you.
Wow. Oh, you missed.
He just so blocked my attack. Wow! He gave me the toe.
Let's see what happens.
Jeez.
I won. Yeah, so much for your Ken Master.
Yo, that Hawk was too strong. Wow, Hawk was always strong though in most of the games.
Yeah, that's why I chose him, because remember I played him last time.
Right, not even fair. Well, Hawk is a regular character, so it's okay. He's playable. And he was even in most of the standard games anyway. All right.
Get ready to kick butt.
Give a guy a chance to change,
Yeah, Dalson's another crazy one. Who did I pick? Oh, 2099. Oh, he's just a regular spider. He just looks different. Okay.
I can't play him. Daddy,
What?
this time I'm not really playing for him.
Alright, okay. Make it easier for him. I don't want him complaining, guys. We're just gonna restart it. Hold on. Oh, you can pick your character. Alright, go ahead.
Zangief.
Zangief?
Zangief. Zangief's dice.
Oh.
Ego, he's not.
No, he's not.
Who's this guy? Shadow. Who's Shadow?
Oh, Shadow is Charlie. But,
Decision.
he's Charlie's Shadow, pretty much. He was like one of the hidden characters in Street Fighter.
Hero? Where's that Ultra Mega Man?
Yes, I'll be making Dragon Ball Z jokes all night. It's okay. Ah, man.
Daddy, where was that Ultra Mega Man?
Ultra Mega Man?
Yeah, remember that Ultra Mega Man you showed me?
I don't remember. I think the black one is pretty good. That one, yeah, that's Forte. That's one of I don't know if he was a good guy or a bad guy. I don't remember. I think he was a good guy. He was one of Mega Man's allies.
Where's the Ultra Mega Man at?
Ugh. They said be the squid. No, the squid is good. What the heck is that?
What squid?
Yeah, he's good. Shimagara?
Be the squid?
Actually, I think he was the boss in the first. Well, not the boss, but he was one of the enemies in the first Marvel vs. Capcom.
I don't know.
All right, it's showtime.
Dad, they said for me to be the squid, so let's see how it goes.
All right, what's going on, Jesse?
What?
Let's get. Ooh, you picked red. Here we go. Oh, man! See how strong he is?
You over here! You've been changing all these guys, and I can just do this.
That's it. Gotta play him. Bear with me here. Oh gosh. Man, why are you so strong?
Stop changing here.
Oh my god, dude, do something good. Oh, there you go. I have to change into people. That's like, he doesn't have his own abilities. Right. Alright, your moves are just getting annoying now. Get the hell out of here with that. Alright, that's it. That's it. Like, you and your long tentacles are like...
Runner, you scaredy cat?
I ain't a scaredy cat. At least I'm doing stuff. Alright, that's it. Ah! Can't do anything! He's not that good.
You told him.
Yeah, I mean, the concept is there, but his actual abilities just don't cut it. Yeah, it just doesn't cut it.
Hey, I just went back to my home. I'm just like, frick this, I'm gone.
Oh, man.
I beat you with him. Jeez. So many bad references being that squid. Wow, Archie?
Orchid. She's from Killer Instinct.
Orchid? Okay, Orchid.
It's showtime.
Okay, Orchid. See how you do again.
Pretty good. And that's the insane one? Oh, God.
Yeah, you get him.
Yeah, look at his eyes. Oh, he's going insane in the membrane. Showtime. Yes, me. Right. You got it. Let's go. Oh, 15. Why do you get all these characters coming in with like epic like entrances and stuff? Okay, quick, use fast. Okay, that's cool. Seriously, they're doing the Killer Instinct combo breaker. Oh, this is gonna hurt. Yeah, that's pretty painful. See that one coming to you.
I saw everything.
That's it. That's it.
Sure?
Yeah, you and your spam, man. Like, mix it up. All right, come on. I don't think she's gonna do. Oh, I got my. Well, you are an insane, so your character's like buffed. Like he's got like special powers added. Because the normal one ain't that good.
Well, I didn't know he was that good until you
It's okay, but he could be beatable. It's just not with the character I'm playing. My character's too slow.
Oh!
Wow. Uh-oh. Just need more butter. Right, right. That's right, more butter. Let's go. Come on.
Oh, you got launched across the map.
Now that was a combo. Right. You're a spammer. It's okay.
I don't know what I'm doing.
You're fine. You're fine. I'm not worried about it. You're trying. See, that was a combo. All right, come on. This is the thing about fighting games. People like you is what people hate. But then, like some games, when you go against pros too, they're even worse because they just have infinite like combos. Go buy him some spam, and I'm gonna get you some spam. I'm gonna give you a can of spam because that's what you're doing right now.
What are you talking about? You're about to beat me.
That's my combo. You got me. Dang
Who
it.
wins this round?
Dang it.
Where did I go?
Stop moving so much. Stand still for a second.
Nope.
Stand still for a second. I want to talk to you. Nope. Now if I block
Wow.
it. Please tell your abilities. Get them all, not by guessing. Right, let's go. That's it. Oh my gosh! That is crazy. Oh! Alright, that's it, that's it, that's it! I'm going way too far with this.
Wow.
Wow, I tried. I was trying to sneak in a little quick combo in, guys. It didn't work out too good.
So where did I just go?
You just flee the scene.
Yeah, let's see how I do against my Psycho Archer again. And hero. Daddy. Wait, did I just see what I thought I seen?
Huh?
Where's that guy at? Where was he at?
I have no idea.
Master Sambit?
Come again. It's showtime.
No, I'm gonna choose some. Where was the?
Oh. No, you're good. You're good. I want to try something.
Silver Samurai?
Wow.
Like who?
Wow.
Why did I pick this?
Somebody's got to win that jackpot already.
Where was the Mega Man I just saw?
I bet you someone's going to win one day. Trust me.
Like, where was that Mega Man I just saw?
Decision.
Oh, never mind.
Situation.
Mega Man, he's pretty good.
I'm
Get ready.
Seems like that referee's popping out a lot now.
wow! Get a can of spam!
What the? We're supposed to block that? You're supposed to accept my cards.
Woo! Wow!
Pokeball, what the? Okay. Okay, it's pretty quick, huh? You need those the same powers, man. You can't do regular people. Come on! Pick somebody stronger. Yeah, that's it.
What am I supposed to do?
Get ready.
Project Zero was very close, guys, as well. Man, it was a couple times you guys got very close to it. Okay. That's gonna hurt.
Wow, yeah, very hurted.
Ow!
Cajun strike. Cajun strike.
Not too quick for you? Come on, come on!
Cajun strike.
Right him out of speed.
This will help you out a little bit. Beat you? Okay, let's go. I think you can use your dog.
I don't know how to use it. I forgot who I was gonna pick. Oh, that's who I was gonna pick. Okay.
Who? What?
Nothing. I was gonna pick this one guy, but I don't know where he's at. Really? You had to pick him.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a different version of him. That's the open version.
Yeah. Oh, Sandman? Yeah, he was one of Spider-Man's villains.
Oh, that's Sam. Find him. Where's he at? I know he. Yeah, where's the Flash at?
10,500.
Where's the Flash?
I don't remember.
Found the Flash, but you don't. You're just saying that so I don't get him and kick your butt.
Ooh, my neck just cracked like a lot of times just now. Unbelievable.
Oh,
I just realized I got Thor in here. Yeah, he's probably good too. Pieces in here? Oh, why's he got his foot on the screen?
you. Where the flip is?
No idea.
Flash.
Can't find it.
You know what, Daddy? I'm gonna bring some snacks to my.
Oh wow, she's actually good. You seen her before? Yeah, let me show you how this little Red Riding Hood is. She's good. She's from
deliver some biscuits.
She's from Darkstalkers.
Let me just deliver some biscuits.
Just realize her name is Uletta. You'll see.
Get ready.
She's cheerful, right? Look how evil she is. Bombs. Yeah, packing bombs under there, throwing mines. Guns. Taking pictures while she's slashing me. Like, she's evil, man. Come on. Wow! Wow!
What is that?
Gotta get my life back.
What? You can your life back by doing that?
Yep.
Peter. Wow, I missed that.
There you go, guys. Thank you so much for the subscriptions. Ooh, Deadpool. Right, yeah, Deadpool's in here. Oh my gosh, she hurts. But you see how I'm playing as him? I'm not doing like, oh gosh. What the?
Oh, you're not dead.
I have no idea. Come on. Oh, that's painful.
Let me deliver some biscuits to you, mister.
Oh, she is. I told you, she's deadly, man.
Oh, I'm peaceful.
Hey, is she? Yeah, she's from Darkstalkers, I believe.
Smoking.
Yeah, she's just a bad influence on everything.
Oh!
Yeah, he can be deadly. So are you. Don't worry, I got my eye on you. Alright, that's it. That's it. That's it! I'm going kamikaze on you now. It's the last round. Shit.
Oh, wow. Wait, that means you take a life from me, right?
Yep.
Okay, stop.
There we go. What's up, Johnny? How are you? Thank you so much. I know the dog is all scared. Like, ooh, ooh. Gonna hurt? Oh, look at my health.
She's evil. She even got the army on her side. Right? Right,
Yes, she
Daddy?
does. That's it. That's it. You had me pinned long enough. Her splash damage is annoying.
Wow. You're annoying with that health thing.
What the?
Oh, was that you or me?
You?
That was me?
Dang! She looks so sweet and innocent until she kills you. Right, exactly.
Look at the flowers around me, Daddy. Daddy, look.
Yeah, she's playing SingStar now. Alright, guys. Hold on a second here. Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Don't mess with Buletta, man.
Yeah.
Don't steal her grandma's snacks or she'll come and get you.
Oh, yeah. She's not no innocent Little Red Riding Hood. Come grab your Hold on, guys. Give me one moment, okay? Hold on. We'll be right back. Hold on. All right, let's see here. Oh, yeah.
Decision.
I'm gonna go with the electrode.
Get ready to kick butt.
Wow, Master Gumbots. Can be hard after the eyes. Yeah, it can be. It can. Yeah, most definitely.
Get ready, fight!
Whoa! This is a bright level. Jeez. I don't think I stand a chance against this guy. Holy mackerel.
Charging. Strike.
I don't think this character's gonna cut it.
See you, little share. Charging.
Master Game, it's pretty strong. Alright, so what do you guys think about it so far? You guys like it or no?
Get ready!
I really was playing this with Little Man, but now that he's off, I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do here, guys. I don't have much time. It looks fine. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it. Oh boy. Okay. I think I might have another one for you guys. I gotta see if it still works, so hold on. Shoot. Dang! I can't move! Wow. Look at the AI is ridiculous in this game.
See you, little share.
Wow. That just happened. Yeah. That just happened. Alright, let me check something here real quick, guys. Give me a moment. Hold on, okay? AI does hack. I swear they cheat. The AI be cheating like a son of a gun. Oh shoot, where was it? I don't remember where it was, guys. Dang it, I think it's here. I don't have it anymore. Oh, shoot, it doesn't work. Why? Okay. Oh, this ain't the one we want. Hold on. Never mind. Thought I had it, but I guess not. Wow.
Capcom.
Alright, let's see here. Alright. Oh, so it does show you some of the moves.
Get ready to kick butt.
Oh gosh, I just realized I put the team thing. I'm in trouble. It's showtime.
Get ready, fight!
Yeah, there we go, that's how we do it. Oh, I'm actually standing a chance with this one. Okay. Now they're kicking my butt. The AI be cheating in here, I swear they do. Okay. Jeez. I'm doomed. I got pinned. I'm dead. Well, we knew that was coming.
Get ready, fight!
That's crazy. Alright, so I think what we're gonna do, guys, actually, we'll probably take a break here in a little bit. I don't really want to switch games now because I don't have much time. Are they attacking each other? Is that what they're doing right now? Oh, that's You know what I'm really hoping with Capcom? Dino Crisis Remake. How do you guys feel about that? Yeah, they're gonna take me out. That's crazy. Yeah, I know somebody's doing it with the Unreal Engine, like a fan-made version. So they're making their own version of Dino Crisis Remake. So it's not like the real deal, but it's about to be the best we can get. My only theory about that is, I don't know if you got how familiar you guys are aware with how Capcom games were made back then. Most of the games back then were pre-rendered. So like the backgrounds were just like images rather than 3D models. So like when Dino Crisis was released, the environment was actually 3D. So I want to say Dino Crisis 1 was probably the best one they've ever made. I myself was actually playing it. I never beat it. I got pretty far. I have to check on it because I know I was playing it on my phone. We managed to get pretty far, but we never actually completed it. All right, so what I need to do is actually remove this one. We're not going to need that controller. This one, I think we can move back. Okay. What is going on here? I need to move this little thingy because this is where we're like, yeah, you know. All right. Yeah, I think we'll do a little bit of like just a little chatter before I get off, guys. See what's going on with that. All right. So yeah, this game was kind of cool. Something my son really wanted to play, so I was like, you know what? Let's do a little bit. Let's try it out. All right. You know. Let's see here. Right now I'm just I think I'm gonna close it up. That's what I'm doing right now, Johnny. I think I'm gonna close it up. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do right now. And I really appreciate it. Like, I don't know a lot of Brazil, but I do know it says something about watching the video and what I'm doing, I think. Because it's kind of like Spanish. It's not, though, but it's like, okay, esta. You know, let's do another round. We'll do one more round. Why not? I just have to hit continue, though, because I just got my butt kicked so bad just now.
I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride.
Whew. Who am I gonna play as? I need somebody that's gonna help me out because the AI cheats in this game. I swear they do.
Ready to keep.
We'll go with Morgan. Found that sound effects website again. Oh, you found it? That's good.
How about a little fire?
Come on!
Yeah, I think we'll add a couple.
Get ready.
Put some new ones up there for you guys. Especially for the ones we have that have no sound effects. For. Why do I keep doing that? If anything, Jay, if you're on, I can probably, we'll do a couple commands, I guess. Get that site handy, bro. I'll probably, we'll get on the Discord call. I'll be on Discord in a little bit. We'll hang out in the chat for a little bit. Come on, Morgan. Don't let me down. Don't let me down. I'm actually fighting back with her. Like, Morgan's pretty good. Sometimes they don't have, like, Dimitri or, like, oh gosh.
Stars and stripes!
Danger!
Wow, that was close. That was very close, guys.
Get ready. Fight.
Wow, she just flamed on me. Wow, he just cast in Wolverine? What the heck? This is not good. Not good, guys. I don't think we're gonna be able to hold this down right now. I gotta do better than they got me. Showtime, come on. Oh, that's painful. just gotta be a little patient. Oh, this gonna hurt. Wow. Wow. Okay. A U.S. agent. Alright, guys. We're gonna go ahead and get some shout out. Jay, I'll meet you on Discord, bro. I'll probably like be well, I'll meet you in the VIP chat thingy. Oh yeah. Alright, actually, yeah, we'll do that. Okay. Alright, guys. Thank you so much for coming in. I know we had a couple subscriptions. We had a couple subscribers on YouTube. A couple good chats in chat, guys. I just don't have much time. If I had more time, I would continue on with like something else. I would have switched games, switched titles, I did all that good stuff. But because we don't have much time, we're just gonna actually close it for now. If things real smooth, I'll probably do a mobile one later. So, it's a possibility. Let me just see. I know yesterday I didn't really have much time. I just and I'm just kind of just did a quick one. Plus I'm getting tired. Why am I so tired? I don't know. But yeah, I'll meet you on Discord, bro. I'll catch you guys in a bit. And thank you so much, guys. And you guys have a great night. And I will see you guys in the next broadcast.